Having an inclusive society is critical in managing COVID. For some reason, there are some who believe that the management of COVID is the exclusive domain or the exclusive responsibility of the cabinet members. It is the responsibility of every citizen, every resident that lives in this country. So what is required here now is for us to work collectively, for each of us to take our responsibility seriously to manage COVID. And I want to make a point here too, colleagues, that the Caribbean is literally now on the threshold of descending into an Indian situation insofar as COVID is concerned. Many of you are not thinking about the seriousness of COVID, the spread of the Delta variant. Many of us would have watched the situation in India months ago when people were dying so fast, the hospital systems were actually overwhelmed, and they had to be burning bodies. They didn't have enough time to bury them. If we're not careful, and I want to appeal to the Caribbean people, if we're not careful, colleagues, we'll find ourselves in a dire situation. COVID is increasing exponentially throughout the Caribbean region. It is a major problem, and governments will have to step up and to take stronger positions. In fact, this issue of mandatory vaccinations will become a necessity within the Caribbean. It is inescapable. And those who are vaccinated, those who are loyal to this country, we all have an obligation to push back against the unvaccinated and to use our influence to get them vaccinated in order to save our civilization. Yes. We do not understand that our civilization within the Caribbean is now at risk because of ignorance. We have an abundance of life-saving vaccines available to Caribbeaners. And over 50% of our populations, our respective populations, are refusing to take these life-saving vaccinations or vaccines. So, with that type of stubborn behavior, what are the options? What are the alternatives available to governments within the Caribbean? Do we sit back and allow our people to die? Do we sit back and allow our health system to be destroyed, to be overwhelmed? At this point in Antigua and Barbuda, we now have to literally commission a third facility, the NTTC facility, within the next 2 days to accommodate the overflow from Mount St. John. The IDC, which we are proactive in building, is full. Mount St. John is full. How many more people must die in this country before we start to take the vaccination seriously? How many more people must get ill? And I want to say to those political elements who continue to use subterfuge and to undermine the system, you need to stand down. You need to join in the fight. COVID is the most significant threat facing the Caribbean region at this time. Not climate change, COVID. And I want to issue a clarion call to the Caribbean people. We can do better. We have 99% literacy in the Caribbean region. We're among the most vulnerable people in the world. Part of our vulnerability has to do with our ancestry, what happened to us during colonialism and slavery, that we're given all the bad foods, that Europe left this region underdeveloped, that we have a prevalence of NCDs to include diabetes, obesity. We're more vulnerable than North Americans and Europeans. And we should be rushing for those vaccines even more so than those who live in North America and Europe, because we're more vulnerable. Structurally, we are vulnerable. And yet still, we've been extremely selfish, taking the position that we have the choice as to whether or not we get vaccinated, putting an entire civilization at risk. It is totally inappropriate behavior for Antiguans and Barbudans and for Caribbean people to be so irresponsible. And I want to say to all of us here in Antigua and Barbuda, each of us, that we have a responsibility to stand up in every forum and to speak up about vaccinations. Vaccinations are not new. If we didn't have vaccinations during the last century, many of us would have had debilitating disease. Many of us would have died. My dear colleagues, this is a very serious issue. I have signaled to the people of Antigua and Barbuda months ago that if we have to make vaccinations mandatory in this country, we'll do it. We're not afraid to do it. We recognize, however, that as leaders that we must be tolerant. And I am satisfied that we have exercised sufficient tolerance in this country, and the time has come for us to act. And I want to say to the members on this side, we cannot put our political value or political interest above that of the national interest. There comes a time when we have to stand alone and to make decisions in national interest. And the time has come. Just yesterday, my cabinet took a decision that all public servants must get vaccinated or get tested at least twice monthly. Otherwise, you will not be eligible to enter into the workplace. And if you don't come to work, you cannot justify getting paid. And if you don't come to work after a period of time and you abandon your job, you lose your employment. We are a Labour Party organization. We're not seeking to threaten people's jobs. But we have a problem. And as the most significant, the largest employer in this country, we have an obligation to provide a safe working environment for workers in this country, certainly those in the public sector. And I hope that others in the private sector will follow. We cannot continue to play with this debilitating and deadly disease. Time has come for us to call a spade a spade. And those who want to go and protest, fine, go and protest, but respect the laws. And the laws are very clear. No more than 10 people are supposed to congregate. And if you break the laws, there are consequences. I know that there'll be lots of hate speeches after this, but I'll take the hatred. All I know is that I was elected to serve in this honorable house. The members on this side have shown enough confidence in me to serve as Prime Minister. I have taken an oath in this honorable house to lead without fear or favor. And I have an obligation to stand in this honorable house and tell the people of Antigua and Barbuda about the risks that they're faced with if we do not act and act now. How many more people must die? Another 100, another 200 before we act? And the irony about it, colleagues, if we don't act, they will still blame us. So let us act, do what we are required to do to protect the citizenry, to protect lives and livelihoods. And I'm saying here to my people, you need to cooperate. We're not trying to be aggressive. We're not trying to be antagonistic towards anyone in this society. But there comes a time when we have to stand up and take a very firm position. And we're here now. The issue about getting vaccinated and taking certain decisions to prevent individuals who are not vaccinated from entering the workplace is not new. It's just the time has come now that we have no choice but to implement that policy. And we expect every single public servant to cooperate. Now, some may argue, well, vaccinated persons can carry the virus as well. Yes, we understand that. But that's a low risk, because at the end of the day, the transmission from vaccinated persons would be lower because they have a lower viral load. But if you're unvaccinated, then you obviously will be, let's say you'll be a greater transmitter of the virus than a vaccinated person. But what is also more important for the unvaccinated is that they're the ones who will succumb to the virus. They're the ones who will become hospitalized and die, overwhelm the system, so that innocent people who have other diseases cannot even get treated. We cannot allow that to happen. And we have to protect people from themselves. We have to protect the unvaccinated from themselves.
Yes, you're right ahead.
In fact, the unvaccinated need to understand they're mashing up the country. When we have to curtail hours of operations, when we have to lock down, and let's face it, Mr. Speaker, if the epidemiological position gets worse or worsens in this country, we have to lock down the country. And where are we going to get monies from to pay pensions? When are we going to get money from to pay salaries and wages? You're all mashing up the country. You're all mashing up our civilization. And I'm saying to those unvaccinated anti-vaxxers, whatever you call yourselves, stand down. Now is not a time for foolish rhetoric. This is a time for people to take full responsibility and to act now. And I'm calling on every Antiguan and Barbudan who is not vaccinated to do so. We do accept that there are certain exceptions. Certain exceptions based on certain medical conditions, even based on their religion. That's fine. But those who can take the vaccine, it doesn't matter how healthy you are, doesn't matter how strong you are, you owe it to your family members, you owe it to yourselves, you owe it to your nation to get vaccinated. It's the only way out of this predicament.